In today's video, we're going to be installing hardwood floors. These are 3/4 maple hardwood floors, and they are tongue and groove, so we're going to be using a flooring nailer to nail them down. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to cut all your corner pieces, like leave an expansion gap for expansion and contraction. I'm going to tell you little techniques here and there. I'm going to show you how to cut around complicated areas like the doorways and the closets, and show you all the stuff you need to know so that you can install a floor by yourself. All right, let's get started. Okay, so one of the first things we need to do here is we need to get the door jambs up so that the floor can slide underneath them going into this room here. And you're gonna start in the room. If you already have a threshold, then you're not gonna run into this problem. But if you don't have a floor yet and you don't have a threshold, you're gonna wind up having to do this. Also, when you run it into the closet, you're gonna have the same issue. So what you're gonna have to do is take a scrap piece or any small piece of the flooring that you have, because that's the exact size you need, and just butt it up against, put it on the floor and butt it up against the door jamb. And you're gonna see right past the jamb is only 3/4 of an inch thick that you need to cut, because the wall plate behind it for the 2x4 framing is not going to come into play, because you need to leave at least a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch gap of expansion. So what you're gonna do is take, if I can find it, there it is, right behind me, a multi-tool. You're going to take a 3/4 inch piece of your hardwood or whatever kind of size floor you're using. You'll butt it up against there, and you're going to just use that as your guide, and you're going to press down against the block so it's flush, and you're going to run your multi-tool just until you cut out the bottom of the jamb enough for the door to fit underneath. Okay, got all the pieces out. If you don't have a multi-tool, if you don't want to go out and buy one, you can do the same thing by putting your scrap block there. And now you can see how perfectly it fits underneath the door, right underneath the jamb. You can also take a pull saw like this that's flexible, or a flush trim saw, and you can put that down on the floor just like that, and you can go back and forth, and you can use the pull saw to get in there and do the same thing. The only thing is it's going to take a lot longer. So what you want to do is you want to make sure the joints are staggered about every 6 inches away on different planes of where the floor is going to meet. So let's just start here with this. I already established a straight line. I've been doing this for a while. I started late last night. I got all the way down the hole pretty much, but I'm going to show you how to do it inside the room. But I just want to show you how to establish your starting points. You need spacing for expansion and contraction, and that goes without saying. I've never seen a board get longer, but I have seen them shrink and expand from the direction of the width. And that's for, it absorbs the moisture, and what it does is it swells up, and then when the moisture gets sucked out of it, and then the board shrinks down. So obviously your heating in the house, your air conditioning, that's going to dictate any kind of movement. You really don't need more than 3/8 to a 1/2 inch of expansion. Now, I don't like to touch the walls, even on the lengthwise. You don't want it jammed up against there, because you need a little bit of give. So what I'm going to do is, in this case, it fits right underneath the sheetrock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it just right up to about where the bottom of the sheetrock is. Now underneath is the floor plate of the wall. That 2x4 goes in about a 1/2 inch anyway. So you don't have to worry about your expansion joints there. But if you look, you see I have this piece. There's a joint right here. So what I want to make sure is, as I get that piece to come across here, I don't want these joints to line up right here in what I call an H pattern. It looks kind of stupid. So what you want to do is make sure that it's away from it over here, away from the joint there, and it's away from the next joint over there. You don't want it to line up two joints together when you put the boards in. If you have a board here and a board here and the joint goes right across, that's absolutely horrible. It's a no-no. It doesn't strengthen the joints of the floor either. When you stagger joints like this with tongue and groove, you're locking everything together and making it even more strong. There's no chance of it moving. And when I say moving, I mean coming apart. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your floor hammer that will come with your nailer. This is a floor nailer, and it sits on the tongue just like that, and it shoots staples or cleats into the floor that you're working on, tongue and groove. So I chose staples with that, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up, tongue and groove, just like that, and I'm going to tap it in with the back of the hammer. You see the back of the hammer, it comes out further than the top, and that's to protect the top of the tongue and the top of the board, because it'll hit it at the bottom and you'll see the joint close up nicely. See, I'll just go down like this, and it really makes it tight together. And now also when I want to move it down, I'll just tap it like this, and that doesn't hit the top of the board where the joint's going to go. So I'm just going to keep hitting it down until I'm happy of where it's going to land. About there is fine, just right about level with the sheetrock, right just slightly underneath it. And I'm going to give it a little tap here, make sure everything's good, push that out of my way, and then these adapters on the bottom, that white piece right there, they come with the flooring nailer. You have 3/4, you have 1/2 inch, you have 3/8, and that's for all the different size of wood you're using. I'm using 3/4, so I'm using the 3/4 adapter plate. Now what you want to do is you want to staple it about every 6 to 8 inches. So I'm going to get close to the corner here, but not right up on it, just close enough. I'm just going to put my foot there. And then you're going to take the hammer, and it runs off an air compressor, obviously it's pneumatic. And you're going to take it and let the weight of the hammer, just bring it up and let the weight of the hammer just hit into that plunger, and it's going to shoot the staple right in there. Just like that. So I'm going to move it down about 8 inches, 6 inches. I'm just going to let the hammer do the work. One more right here. Okay, so when you buy flooring, the boards, the boxes, they come in different lengths inside the box. So you have some short pieces like this, all random sizes. And that can help you, and it can also hurt you. Because if you're not careful, like I said, and you're using the wrong pieces without paying attention and doing a little bit of layout first, then you're going to screw up the joints. Also, another thing you need to be aware of is that one end has a tongue and one end has a groove. And that's because the tongue, it locks in the pieces together, not only when they're staggered like this, but also when the pieces meet like this at the joint, and that will prevent pieces from coming up and being uneven, creating a tripping hazard, or just an unpleasant look when a floorboard comes up and it's uneven. You can tell. So what we need to do to make our cuts here, there's a couple of things that we can do. We can be wary of. If you don't want to use a tape measure and mark the board like that, you can take the board that's going to go up against this wall. We know this board is going to go right up to just about where the sheetrock is, right? But if I mark it, if I just go like that and then I mark it here, I'm cutting off an important part here. That's the tongue that's going to sit inside the groove. So what I want to do is just take my board and flip it over end for end like this, upside down. So now the tongue is not going to get cut off because I'm going to be marking the other side. So I'm going to put it in place right where I want it, just like that, right about underneath the sheetrock slightly. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'll come over here to the back of the board, and I'm going to make a mark right past, just slightly past where the line is, where the joint is right here. And that's to allow for the tongue to go inside of the groove right there, which in this case, this one goes in about 5 millimeters. So now we can bring it over to the miter saw. Now, if you are careful and you go back and forth and you set up a bunch of pieces here, you can actually find a piece that may fit. You want to try to do as few cuts as possible because those trips back and forth to the miter saw gets a little tiring. So if you can find a piece, like I found a bunch of random pieces that I haven't had to cut much at all, but in this case here, sometimes when you're in between two walls, it doesn't always work. You're going to have to make a trip out to the miter saw. Okay, so now I have my mark right here. We want to cut on right on that line. We have a little bit of play here because the tongue is going to go inside of the board, so you don't have to be so precise where you cut on the waist side. Just get it right on the line. If you cut it right on that line, you'll be fine. We have that little bit of play that lets us get underneath the wall there and then slide it in to the spot we need. Tap it with the bottom of the hammer, make the joints nice and tight. Now, if you can't hit it over here because there's no room, you take the rubber side of the mallet and tighten up that joint just like that. Perfect. And then just tap, make sure it's all good. And now here's the thing with this. This is a floor that's designed to look like it's hand cut and hand scraped. So every one of these joints, I don't know if you can really pick that up on camera, but the top joint has a slight bevel, a little chamfer right there on each edge. And what that does is it eases over the joints, and it makes them look just slightly imperfect, but at the same time, so you can see the joint, but you know that it belongs there because it was made that way. So it's not a seamless joint where if you were doing regular like white oak hard floors or red oak hard floors and having them put together and then sanded down flush, those are all cut completely square because they're made to have a seamless look to them. These are made to be kind of like a rustic look. So it all depends on the floor you like. You get to choose. I'll get as close as I can here without hitting the door, and that's it. Now we have our nice straight line, and now I can start running it into the room past the threshold. The reason I was showing you this here is so that you get a gist of all the tips and techniques that we're going to be doing here. And now we can go into the room and work our way all the way to the other side. And I'll show you, once I get in there, I'll show you how I change directions with the spline. If you were starting in a room, which I'm not starting in this room, I'm coming in from the hallway with no threshold. But if you were to start in a room, if you were just doing 1 or 2 rooms that were separated, then you'd be starting on the back wall, making sure you know which way your joists run. My joists in the floor run this way. So you want to always go across the joists, if possible, with the flooring. Not only to stagger the joists with the flooring and make for a really strong structure because of the cross hatching, but it also helps to eliminate some noise too by crossing those joists and running everything into a tight pattern. Make sure you always screw down your subfloor in the squeaky spots first before you start. That will definitely help. But for support, the best way to do it is to have the floor joists running across with the floor going on top of it in that pattern. It's just a stronger way to do a floor. So then you have your tongue and groove, everything locks together, it's great. You would start in your back corner and you would run it out this way, making sure that you lay out all your parts, but at the same time, get your distance away from the wall on that side, which is about 3/8 of an inch. Mark a line 3/8 of an inch on that side, on the opposite side of the room, and then snap a chalk line straight across. This way, you have a complete straight line evenly running across the floor, so that when you work your way this way and you get to the end of this side of the room, everything's still going to be perfectly straight when you get to the end of the room and you work your way out towards the door. Or you see that I've done the hallway because I'm working my way from the stair nosing all the way back. I'll show you that at the end of the video. I'm coming into each room with no threshold. It's going to be continuous flooring right through. So I have to start here and work my way this way. So my only complicated cuts are going to be here at the threshold to go underneath the door jamb and get my spacing up to the sheetrock. Then it's going to be easy in the corners here. Then maybe 1 or 2 complicated cuts here into the closet, and I do have to run more paper because I have to put a piece of paper into the closet. I didn't put a paper barrier down in there yet. The paper must go down under the floor because they give you, at least with this particular company and floor, I got a 100-year warranty on this, but if you don't have the paper down and something has to be done where they send out a technician to assess the damage or anything like that, and they find out you don't have the paper down, they won't warranty the floor. So just get the vapor barrier flooring. It's not that much money. Put it down the way they specify, 4-inch overlap, staple it to the floor, and then run your flooring over it. It helps with moisture and a little bit of a sound damping. I need to connect this piece here across the threshold, connecting to the hallway to run it out inside the room. So a little bit of a complication here that I need to make a couple of cuts so that I can have this groove hit into this tongue here and then run around this underneath the jamb, which we cut the jambs. I showed you how to do that with the multi-tool. And then I need to notch out here so that when I push this in, it avoids hitting the sheetrock and still gives me the gap I need. So what I did was I just laid it in place, and I had a little bit of even spacing by moving this here to about where I want the distance from the wall for the expansion and contraction. Then I measured from this part of the top of the floorboard to this part of the top of the floorboard, and I have 2 1/4. Then come over to this side and get 2 1/4 on the tape so that everything is even. So if it's not even, just bring it here to 2 1/4 and just tap it in place until you get your even spacing. So I'm going to go with 2 1/4 there and 2 1/4 here. And then what I'll do is I'll make a mark here on the board so that I know I can get it underneath the jamb but not hitting the 2x4 of the floor plate, or I should say the floor plate of the wall studs, because the 2x4 is running underneath the sheetrock. And then I'm going to make another mark here at 2 1/4. And then on this side of the door, I'll do the same thing. I'll make a mark underneath the jamb, and then I'll make a mark at 2 1/4. And so now that I have my marks on the board, hopefully that's coming through on the camera, you can see it. I have my mark here that goes underneath the jamb, and then I have my 2 1/4 spacing. Let's take a speed square, and you can find your mark here in the speed square, and it has already a notch inside there that you can follow along, and then you can just write along the board with your pencil, just like this. And now you have the perfect scribe. So you can see the notch that we need to cut out. So coming down here, I'll cut all this out. Okay, so I'm set up here in my master bedroom. That's where I have my temporary workshop. So what I'm going to do is I'll use the MFT. There are a couple of ways that you can cut out these notches. You can use track saw and run it along here, and then you can use jigsaw to cut off the remaining piece, or a miter saw and cut up to that line. And the same thing with the notch over there. But I'm just going to use the jigsaw to do the whole thing because it's just as fast, and the cuts don't have to be actually perfect because they're going to be up against the wall, close to with a gap, and covered by a baseboard. So you want to get them as best as you can, obviously, and I'm very good with the jigsaw, so I know the tricks to cut this precision straight. If you have a table saw, contractor table saw, whatever kind of table saw you have, you can run this along the fence until you get close to that line and stop there, and then finish off the remaining part of the cut with a handsaw or a jigsaw. So what I'm going to do is set it up here on the MFT, lock it in place, clamp it down so that you don't have to worry about anything moving on you. It's very safe that way. Make sure you have 2 points of clamping because you need 2 points of contact so that the piece doesn't spin. Okay, so now if you did everything right, you can take your flooring hammer. So now I have my notches, and it's going to go underneath that floor there, and it's going to go underneath the jamb on this side also. So what I'm going to do is just get it into place. Now I haven't test fitted it yet, so wish me luck here. I want to get it close to the wall there for the expansion, and now we can start to put it in place. And you may have to push down a little bit depending. Sometimes these boards are a little bit warped. Sometimes you have to stand on them, get them down. And that's about as good as it gets. Now you see here, this is, it looks like it's pretty close to the sheetrock here. Turn the camera a little bit. This sheetrock is actually higher than the floorboard, so I'm not in any risk of the gap over here being wider than the gap here because the floor actually goes underneath the sheetrock, and the floor plate of the wall studs is actually about a ½ inch away underneath that sheetrock. So I have plenty of room for expansion and contraction. So for this part right here, where the door is open, I'm able to get the flooring nailer in here. And you can see I'm already tight in the back of the hammer, hits the tongue at the bottom, and it knocks it in as tight as possible. So I'm able to get the flooring nailer in here because I'm able to swing the hammer and hit the plunger there. So I'm going to nail that in right there, or I should say staple it in. I got that tight. Come across about 6 inches, 8 inches. Hit it again. 6 inches here. Come close to the door. as close as I can and hit that. Okay, so now we got this stapled in over here. We can't get the flooring nailer in here because of being too close to the wall with the back. So what we do, just switch it to our brad nailer, 2-inch brad nails, and nail through the tongue this way. And then, because this is going to be covered with baseboard, we want to make sure our next pieces don't push this any further. We can nail it in the back also. And these holes will be covered up by baseboard trim later on. And then we can do the same thing on this side. When we get in the corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the wall, and then I'm going to just back it off a little bit. And then I'm going to look to see behind the door if my reveal is good, which it is. And so now I can take my hammer, and I know I have it in the right spot. I'll stand on the board because it's just a little bit wonky, this one here. Once I get one part tapped in, get the other side tapped in, and we'll start tightening everything up. And now, because this is the second row, and this gun is pretty good and compact, I could just get this second row here with this nailer, which is great. So I'm just going to make it right there. Get my last nail in from here, just like this, right there. Beautiful. Then this piece here needs to be ripped right along there like that, just like that. Okay, so now I've cut my piece. I left my expansion gaps because I marked everything. I'm going to rip this piece of sheetrock out of the way, just hanging around here, because this is going to get in my way later on. So I might as well rip it out now. I take my piece, slide it right in there just like that, and I'm going to line up my front edges. I'm going to make sure that I'm touching all the places there. The first thing I'm going to do is nail it to the back. Make sure I'm perfectly square, which I am right there. And now I can nail through the front. And now I have the expansion gap in the back that will be covered by the baseboard. Okay, so I brought it over to the miter saw. I'll cut the piece off that I marked. So the way I'm going to mark this part along the closet, because I have to notch this out to make this fit under here and back. I'm going to straight line it over here. Line it up right there so I have my gap. I'm going to make a mark there. Then I'm going to take my board, line it up right there. Make sure that I'm straight, and I'm going to mark it underneath the jamb. And then use my speed square. Make a mark there. And I can make my mark here just like this. And now I know I need to cut out this part here with either a table saw, jigsaw, or the miter saw combination. so I'm gonna do the closet now because I need to get those doors out of my way. They're on the other side, we're getting close to the wall. I can't swing the hammer with the flooring nail. So normally we would take these with the tongue side and go into the groove. The groove is back here because we ran it in this way. But we need to change directions. So the way we're gonna do it is we're gonna give ourselves a spline inside here that acts as the tongue. And that's gonna be glued in place. It's gonna go right into the groove, just like this. These are made for these floors, so it'll stick inside the groove and the other side will stick out just as much as this tongue does. So what I'm going to do is now flip this board over because I have the tongue facing me and I want to be able to nail through the tongue. That's the strongest way. Now you really don't have to do this. This is going to be the closet. If you're comfortable with it, nobody's ever going to see it. You can butt up in there, you can hammer it inside there, and then you can nail the back down, or you can nail through the back of the groove. It's up to you. It's going to stay just as well. But I like to change directions and put the spine in there to give it a little extra strength. So what I'm going to do is just get this down there where I want it. And what I'll do is, see, I need to run the spline in right over here. So I'll just back this up, open up the glue. And I'm going to run the glue inside the groove here, all the way along to where it stops, just like that. And then I'm going to put the spline inside of that groove, just like this. And then I'm going to take the board and I'm going to bring it to where inside the closet I have my even reveal. This way I know where I need to stop the glue, which is about here. Okay. More. I like to run it towards the bottom. This way we don't get it squeezed out on the top of the board. Now you have a spline running through the entire length of the board. Drop it in like this into place. Get it to where you need it to go. Run it down a little more and start to tap that into place. Okay, so the last row now, what I had to do is measure. I got 2 1/8 inches so that I can give myself a little expansion gap also. I undercut the sheetrock so that I have room underneath. And now I'm just going to take the pieces that I ripped, and I ripped these on the table saw. I have a contractor table saw that I have down in the garage right now. It's just easier to use the table saw to rip these pieces down than it is to use the track saw, because you got to change the blade and the pieces are not that wide. So better off with the table saw. You could do it with a circular saw. You could certainly do it with a track saw. It just takes a little bit more time and effort. So I rip these down, and now I'll just be able to tap them into place. Give them a little persuasion there. And then what we'll have to do is take the pry bar, get the pry bar in against the wall towards the back, against the sheetrock, and just make sure you get it low enough so that you can get your tongue inserted into the groove here. Now it might take a little finessing. Once you have it in place, then you should have enough room to get the pry bar in there and pull it forward like this. And then just gently work down the board. You can see it start to pop into place. Now at this point, you want to make sure that you have it anchored in the corner. So this way it doesn't start to move on you. If there's a slight warp in the board as you get down and start pulling in here with the pry bar, this might pull away. So while I have that nice and tight, I'm going to face nail it towards the corner. That's going to be also covered with base molding, so you can put those in without any worries of them being seen. Okay guys, so here's a quick close-up look
We have our expansion gaps all the way around, all the way into closet. Really happy with the look of this floor. Seamless transitions. I think thresholds are a little outdated unless you're going from a room into, or a hallway into a bathroom. Then I think a transition is cool. But with like a piece of marble, we're all the way there into the closet. Right there, all the way through, inside. It's a little dark in there, you can't see. And we'll just back out of the room so you can get an idea. Really, really nice floor, very happy with it. Install, not that hard. Definitely do this yourself, guys. And I hope I was able to help. And there is my rest of my hallway there, going to the nosing of the stairs and into this other room here, my other kids' rooms. Did that, and then getting all the way back there into that back bedroom. Next, I'll be tackling this one. Okay guys, so that's it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed this and the install and how to do it, and I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope if you are doing something like this, it really does help you. So this is about a room a day, I would say, for someone who has an idea of what they're doing. For someone who doesn't know, I would say you're probably going to be in one room for 2 days, depending on your skill level. If you've done it before, you can bang this out in about half a day. If you are good at flooring and it's your thing, then you could probably knock out 2 rooms in a day. I do about a room a day. All right, guys, so that's it. You only need some basic tools, and I will link them all in the description on the tools that I use. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I have a lot more renovation videos to come, because this house needs a lot of tender love and care, and we're going to be doing it all, so stick with me on that. All right, guys, I will see you next time. Don't forget to hit that picture of a notification bell. That's going to notify you every time I upload a new video. All right, I'll see you next time.